Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome back. Check out the new setup. I am super excited about this. Finally doing the screen capture method. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Dug up my old Focusrite Scarlett that I bought in 2020 and barely used, but it's perfect because now I have my condenser mic set up. I have my webcam. And yeah, this is the ideal setup. And I was able to just figure out how to do all this in like an hour. So I'm super excited. I hope you guys are. I know that one of my comments on some of my previous content was that the quality was not good, and I do apologize for that. The reason is because I was saving those videos from TikTok lives, and whenever I do a TikTok live session, TikTok will save those videos in the cloud somewhere in the sky, and I can download those videos and repurpose them for content, which is great because then I can reuse that time that I spent doing that. But the quality isn't good and there's nothing I can really do about that, unfortunately. But here we are. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of How to Read Architectural Plans. Today we're going to review a set of demolition plans for a renovation. This is for a dormitory, a 3-story plus basement dorm in Rider University in New Jersey. This is a project that I worked on a few years ago, and it's kind of been a while since I've seen this format of a set again. Because it's just kind of so different than how I'm used to doing things recently. But without further ado, let's get into it. I think this is going to be a great video for people who often do renovation work, because the way that a set of plans is set up is very different from a renovation job as opposed to a new construction build. There's a lot of nuance that exists in existing buildings, a lot of stuff that we can't account for, and as such, the architectural graphic standards are a little bit different. So keep that in mind. We're going to dig into the details a little bit later, but just as a preface, I wanted to mention that. Okay. So as always, we start with the cover sheet. If you've seen some of my other videos, this cover sheet will be a little bland. There's not much on here. Residence Hall renovations at Omega House. That's the name of the dorm for Rider University. Here we have a little site map that shows where the building is in relation to the campus. As you can see, there's a couple other buildings here that look similar to this one. And that's basically it. We don't have a structural consultant. We don't have a civil consultant. We just have MEP. So that's the only consultant that's going to be named on the cover sheet. Spiesel is the firm that I worked at when I did these drawings. That's it, guys. That's pretty much it. So let's keep going here. So the second page, here we have some more information. I'll zoom in on the right side over here. Here we have the list of drawings, drawing symbols, material symbols, and abbreviations. So again, I think in my previous sets, all this stuff was on the cover sheet, but as we start to get to these bigger projects and these commercial projects that are a little bit more complex and have a little bit more nuance, a lot of this information will go onto its own sheet. I talked about these items in further detail. I guess I'll just touch on it real quick, but the list of drawings, it's a table of contents, right? Here it breaks down every sheet by trade. So we have architectural, we have the HVAC, we have plumbing, electrical. There's a lot of electrical, and then we have fire protection because there is a sprinkler. Abbreviations, again, this is all industry standard stuff. Don't really need to go into this too much. Material symbols, this is also industry standard. Bat insulation is always going to be this little squiggly diggly line over here. Brick is going to have this diagonal hatch. Hatch is a fancy word for a pattern. Yeah. And then here we have our drawing symbols. All industry standard stuff. A section tag is always going to look like this. An elevation tag is always going to look like this. It's going to point into the direction of the plan where the elevation is being referenced. Okay. So that covers some of that info. Let's take a look at these partition types. In some of my previous reviews, this information would have been captured through verbiage, through text notes. So you would, instead of saying, half inch or a 5/8 inch, 1-layer gypsum wallboard, both sides, 2x6 stud with batt insulation, like sometimes you would just list those things out. But in this case, we have a drawing to accommodate, which I think is a good idea because it just makes it more foolproof. It's a little bit more descriptive, and it gives a graphic quality to it, which is nice. So one thing I want you to take note of that you're going to notice all throughout the rest of this set is that notice how for these two details, it's drawn in detail. All the components are shown. We have the insulation, we have the wall layers, and then at the top and the bottom, it's just a gray solid hatch. Now, if we go over here, it's kind of similar where the top and the bottom is a gray solid hatch, but now the wall is also a gray solid hatch. And there are a few items being shown in detail, such as the hat channels and the gypsum wallboard. Now, the reason for this is one of those nuanced things that you're only going to see in a renovation project. The way that this firm would graphically represent an existing element versus a proposed element is by showing the existing element as a solid hatch, both in section and in plan. So since we're talking in section right now, you can infer that this partition type is showing a furred wall on an existing wall. So the furred wall is going to be new. The existing wall is existing. And then the top and the bottom are existing. Okay, because again, since this is a full gut renovation, well, not a full gut renovation because we're leaving the wall, those elements are staying. Now, as opposed to this drawing, where this wall is showing all of the new components of the assembly in detail, just the top and the bottom are hatched as solid. The reason is because this is just an infill wall that's being built somewhere in the space of the floor where the top and the bottom, like the ceiling and the floor below it, are not going to be affected very much, or they're not going to be touched. We're not highlighting the information for the floor assembly above and the floor assembly below in this drawing. Okay. So if we look at these two proposed wall types, a typo, or no, type mark, never mind. If we look at these two proposed wall types, you'll see we have a little chart under here. And the chart is just to give a little more descriptive information. So we're calling it, we have the type mark here. There's a typo on this side. Call me out for a typo right there. Sorry, guys. Type mark is referencing how this is going to get keyed on the floor plan. So all of your new walls in the floor plan, we'll get to that later. All of your new walls are going to have a little key to it, and it's going to have a number. And that number is going to trace back to the partition schedule so that you can reference the assembly and all the components while you're looking at the floor plan. So on the floor plan, that is going to be B6. Now, you know what? Let's just jump to that really quick. I don't like to jump around too much, but I think that it does help sometimes. All right, so here we have, so if you look, this is the proposed second floor plan. These are a bunch of G wall types. The G is probably the furring. I actually didn't even notice if that was or not, but I'm just going to take that guess. Here we can see the B6 walls. See? So again, see how the walls in the plan, the existing walls are hatched in gray. So all of the gray is just the existing building that's not being touched. Like all these walls are not being touched. So I really shouldn't call this a full gut reno because it's not. Because if you'll notice on the right side, I believe this was block wall, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, what am I saying? Yeah, in the first floor, we were turning all of the bedrooms in the dormitory into studio offices for the faculty. Faculty studio office. See? But so with the block walls staying, we were just going to be putting up furring walls so that it's like a little bit nicer of finished space. So that's why all these G's are shown here. Now we have this larger space on the west side of the plan, which we were going to divide into more offices. So that's why these walls are new, and that's why they're shown as a different hatch. It's just the black edges for the edges of the walls, and then as you can see, they kind of die into the existing building. So these are all new walls. These are new doors. You can see here, this is kind of wrapping a column here, an existing column. Here we have just a column floating out in space, and these are tagged as B6, 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 which we were looking at before. And then what was the other one? B3. Let's see if we can find a B3 or A3. There's an A3 wall here in the bathroom. Okay. We got a few more infill things happening over here. See? So yeah. So you get the idea. So I'm going to go back to the partition schedule. I don't want to be jumping around too much. I feel. Okay. So yeah, so let's just read the schedule real quick, or just read kind of this wall type. So this is a stud size 6-inch. So this is a 2x6 wall. So it's cutting through the wall here. That's why you're able to see all the components, because we're cutting through the wall and we're looking through it. That's what a section is. This is called a break line. This symbol is a break line. So say you have a really tall element and you need to like a wall. Just say you have like a 16-foot tall wall, but you want to graphically represent that wall on a set of plans, but you might not want to show the entire height of that element because it might lay out on the page weird, or there might be a couple different reasons why you would want to shrink that down. Well, we're gonna cut a break line through that element as a way to just kind of, we're still gonna get descriptive, as you can see on the top and on the bottom, but we're just gonna compress that image so that it's something that's more legible, and that we can lay a couple of these on a sheet. Like you can imagine, say these are 10-foot tall walls. You can imagine it'd be kind of weird if there were like these like slender things coming down, and it was just kind of a lot of wasted space. So that's just kind of a graphic efficiency that we use. Sorry about my squeaky chair, by the way. I guess that's the next investment I have to make. Okay, so we have our break line here. We have our 2x6 wall. Okay, this is calling out, it's just saying finished floor. This is a level or an elevation tag. It's saying that here we have insulation. We have our insulation running through the middle of the wall. This isn't a standard symbol for insulation, but if you didn't know that, you would still go over to the material symbols and reference it there. It's calling out for a generic ceiling. It's just saying scheduled ceiling. Why are we being generic? Well, we don't want to be too descriptive because there may be 2 or 3 or 4 different types of ceilings that we're using. These ceilings might be at different heights. So we don't want to own that information here. We just want to kind of generically say, hey, there's a ceiling. It's going to meet somewhere around here. Once you get to the reflected ceiling plans, it's going to get a little bit more descriptive. What type of ceiling it is, how high it is above the finished floor. We're going to keep it generic from here. A few more things. We're calling out metal studs at 16 on center, so we're calling out that it's not wood. This is metal framing. We have a layer of 5/8 gypsum on both sides. Like I said, unfaced batt insulation, full depth of stud. Scheduled base. You'll see in the interior design drawings, the interior designer will specify different types of base. It'll be rubber, it'll be tile, it'll be 4 inches, it'll be 6 inches. So when we say scheduled base, we're basically telling you that that information exists on a schedule somewhere else. And then see note 3. Where's note 3? Let's look for that. Let's look for note 3. Oh, it's right here, right in front of me. Notes, number 3. Construct all partitions with sound isolation construction details per requirements of the Gypsum Manual 2012 Figure 9, including acoustic sealant at perimeter of all partitions. Use fire-rated sealants at rated assemblies. So it's just a bunch of jargon. It's basically saying that this is going to be sound isolated construction. Sometimes we need to put these notes in here so that the contractor has a code section to reference. In this case, Gypsum Manual 2012, Figure 9, we're referencing a specific part of the code or of some kind of regulatory document. And we just want to make sure that all that technical information is covered, but we might not want to put it on the drawing for one reason or another. But still, we're owning that information right here. A couple other notes we have: provide tile backer at all locations to receive tile. So again, we don't want to have to draw 5 or 6 partition types if the same wall is going to be in a bathroom in a wet area that's going to receive tile. I guess you would only need to, I kind of exaggerated, you really only need the 2 drawings, but it prevents us from creating a whole nother drawing that is just going to say tile backer board. Like if we're just going to change one thing about the drawing, we could probably change that information with a note. So say, hey, if this wall is going to get tile, this is what you should provide. This wall over here is it's similar, but as you can see, the gypsum is only on the one side, and the stud size is different. It's 3 5/8. So that's that. It's good to distinguish the two in case if this is building up against a foundation wall or against a block wall or something. It's just good to have that distinction. And then again, these are the 2 types of furring walls that are going to be placed on the existing walls. Excuse me. So as you can see here, we are providing a metal hat channel that's going to sit on the existing wall and provide a gap. The reason for is for sound isolation. If you have an air gap, that is going to prevent the transmission of sound between one space to another, as opposed to a detail like this, where it's going to be a little bit cheaper to build. You don't have to spend the money on the metal, but your sound transmission will be a little bit higher between the 2 spaces. So those are the partition types. We have a couple other details here we can run through quickly. Mineral fiberboard safing insulation. So this is a fire stop detail. So remember how I said that we have a lot of CMU block masonry wall in the building. This is kind of showing a condition where you have that wall that may not extend all the way to the ceiling. So this is providing an insulation detail for there. Typical door swing diagram. So what we're showing here is just this is kind of a quality control thing. We're just showing that we want to reserve a minimum distance from the door jamb to an existing wall. There are also a number of ADA code requirements when it comes to doors and how much clearance you need on the pull side and the push side. So we're including this detail here as a way to make sure that that information is covered on the plans. So the contractor is going to look at this and know, okay, for all doors, typical door for all doors, we're going to need to maintain these dimensions at a minimum in the field. Things change in the field. Like I said before, in existing buildings, a lot of things come up that are unforeseen, and there's really not much you can do about it. And things are going to come up, so I think it's good to have these general diagrams as a way to say, hey, this is a rule that has to be followed. If there's an error in the plans, which there are errors in plans and there are errors in the field, this is construction, it's messy and it's not perfect, and these details will keep those things in check. So that is the second page. So we were calling this the C2. So the cover sheet was C1. This is a C2, which is kind of just general project information and extension of the cover page. Now we're going to get into some juicy code information. Oh man, code stuff. Who doesn't love Egress? Who doesn't love Egress plans and code data? I used to think this stuff was boring. And it definitely is. Don't get me wrong. It is boring. but this is the DNA of what we do. This is the kind of stuff that you need to make sure that you get right or your building doesn't work. It's as simple as that. Okay. So here's the first look at some plans. So the first instance that we have of actually seeing a floor plan is on this code sheet. So here we have the basement, the first and the second floor. I might have said before that this is 3 stories plus basement. Sorry about that. It's 2 stories plus basement. So we have basement, first, second. So on every page, whether it's our floor plan, our demo plan, ceiling plan, it'll be in that same order: basement, first, second. So before we really zoom in on that, let's look at some of these notes up here. So building or area designation. So for every project, we need to distinguish what code section is being used. This project is in New Jersey, obviously, but aside from that, every municipality has the option to adopt a certain version of the building code. Building code versions get released every 3 years. So it'll be, the 2015, the 2018, the 2021, and it's really up to the municipality to decide which code they are adopting. But it's important to make that distinction on the plans, because again, if something comes up in the field and, the contractor has to find out, okay, what is the code requirement for stairs? We're having an issue with our stairs. They need to be able to know, okay, this is building code 2015, not 2021, because there might be a very slight distinction between the two. So just want to make sure that we cover ourselves there. So use group is referring to the occupancy, who's going to be occupying a building. There's a whole section in the building code with a bunch of charts that outlines the different occupancy types, and every building will fall into a category. You can have like assembly for, restaurants and for clubhouses and things like that. You can have M for mercantile or retail. You can have R for residential. In this case, we're calling it B. And I had a little brain fart before, but it's a dormitory, but it's being converted into offices. So that's why it's a B occupancy. Duh, Matt, right? Because at first I was like, type B? Really? This is a dorm room. But that makes sense. So use group classification B. B is the category business, so offices will be classified as B. Oopsies. I hope you can't hear my chair as much as I can, because the chair is driving me crazy. Minimum construction type required, 2B. Construction type for review, 3B. What does that mean? So a construction type refers to the, again, there is a chart in the building code that spells out what the different construction types are. Construction types, excuse me. Construction types are organized into categories based on their flammability. So a type 1A building will be significantly less flammable than a type 5B building. So the minimum construction type required is going to determine on the use group classification. This is getting really deep into the code stuff. I didn't really want to get too much into this because this could be its whole video. So I'm going to kind of back off on this, but just so you know, the minimum construction type required is something that is being determined in the building code based off of the use group. Since it's an existing building, it's 3B, it's fully sprinklered, we're good. Just know that the code information is here. For the purpose of how to read plans, that's all you need to know for now. We have more generic information about the building, allowable number of stories, again, which is another building code related thing related to the construction type and the use group classification. Allowable per code is 5, the actual is 3. And then we have building areas of renovation, total building areas, general project information. Okay, here we have more applicable codes, more code stuff. The same thing that I said about the building code and that the municipality adopting an edition of the building code. The same thing applies for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Here we have like the energy codes. So again, the town is going to decide which of these codes are applicable. Here we have our plumbing fixture count. again, this is more code stuff. I'm going to get out of the code stuff in a minute. I know this stuff is kind of boring. But basically, there are calculations in the code that you must follow that will determine the amount of toilet fixtures, sink fixtures, showers that you need based on your building occupancy, based on your areas. It's a whole bunch of calculations. Guys, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to highlight this whole corner here. Can I highlight things? I can, but that's kind of clunky. For the purpose of this video, yeah, just know that our building code information is in this corner. I don't know if we have any firewalls in this building, but I'll give this stuff to you real quick. But basically, in some other sets, a firewall has been distinguished with if it's a 1 hour rated wall, it'll be a line dot line. If it's a 2 hour rated wall, it's line dot dot. If 3 hour wall, line dot dot dot. You get the idea. But in this case, it's kind of this like interesting. It's like a line with like it's like an inverted line with like a negative of a dot. So I don't know. It's architectural. So let's get to it. So when we're planning a renovation job, we still need to take into account how people are going to egress the building. Egress means exit the building in the event of a fire. So even though, especially since we're changing the use from a dormitory to an office, this is especially important because the requirements are different for those occupancy types. Not going to do a full code review, just want to mention it. But basically, these dots are picking the furthest point in the room and showing the path of travel to egress the building. So see, we have two stair towers here. We have one here and we have one here. We're basically grouping these offices and we're saying all these people are going to exit through this stair tower. There's 2 occupants per room. As you can see, as they leave their room here, they're going to exit this door, and it's going to be 4 because there's 4 people total. And then there's 6 because these 2 people exit. And then there's 8, and then there's 16. So you can see how these things compound because we're trying to count the amount of people that are going to be egressing through these spaces. So again, all these occupants are going to exit through this stair tower. And you can see here we're totaling the 16 over 165. 165 is the allowable. We determined this number based on a code calculation. Whereas over here, we're going to send the people from these 6 rooms into this stair tower. And there's only going to be 12. And these numbers are gonna build on themselves. So as they're coming down the stairs, you're going to notice that these numbers get higher and higher because the stair itself needs to be sized to accommodate all these people until they are finally out of the building. So this is a pretty common way of showing a code plan or an egress plan. Again, the key points of information is the name of the room. So, we're calling out with the room tags. The name of the room is just called a faculty studio office, the room number, the square footage, and the occupant count. So the occupant count in each room is 2 people. We don't typically assign an occupant load for toilet rooms or bathrooms because people are not in the building to use a bathroom. The bathroom is a space that is for the purpose of the building occupants to use. So for the purpose of a code review, we don't have to assign an occupant load to those spaces. So in addition to the stair towers needing to accommodate a certain amount of people based on the size, based on the egress load, we also have to watch out for the max travel distance because you can't just send people down a really, really long hallway and have them egress the building. It has to be, that's not safe. So also within the code, there are more calculations to determine the maximum travel distance for these occupants. So here we're just calling out max travel distance. Now, if you're a framer or a plumber or just one of the trades, a lot of this information is not really going to apply to you. This is more so for when we submit the project for building permit review and the town is able to review sometimes with the fire marshal to make sure that the building is code compliant from an egress standpoint. But again, if you're the framer or something, or one of the guys in the field working on this project, like a lot of this stuff, you'll probably never have to reference these sets or these sheets in the set. So, but it's still good to review because they will show up on any set of plans. If you're a GC, it's good to see this stuff. If you're going to work for some municipality in the code department, it's good to review this stuff. Okay, so yeah, on each floor, it's going to be the same thing. On each floor, we're showing the occupant load in each room. We're showing the travel distance, and yeah, I think this is pretty. I think this is pretty clear. Speaking of clear, here we have dimension. In addition to a calculation which determines the size of the stair, the travel distance, everything's about calculations. In addition to all that stuff, we need to make sure that we have a minimum width in the corridor that is an egress corridor. That is also determined by a calculation. Okay? So those are the code plans. Great. Let's move on. Demolition plans. I'm going to stop recording here.